All right, welcome to No Better Time. I'm Phil Salter, and I'm here today with
Todd
uh,
Bauerle.
Todd Bauerle. Yes, thank you for joining me. Getting excited.
I've been excited for a while about this.
Yeah, we've been talking and trying to find a time, and then I text you randomly, and you just called me, and we caught up, and then you texted me after we talked, and you're like, "When should we do it?" And you're like, "What about right now?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, right now. There's no better time than the present, right?"
Otherwise, why do I name my podcast this?
Yes, exactly. So I'm like, dude, let's do this. And I've already decided I'm going to release this on Wednesday. I have a Monday one, which is usually an interview. And on Wednesdays, I usually do like a little, what I call a quick dive, where I just kind of, it's just me talking for like 10 minutes or so about like things
Yeah,
I've been thinking about or updates. But this is going to be pace of that because I want to get this out there. I'm just so excited to talk to you. So
sweet.
Todd is awesome. You've come up on my podcast. I've called you out saying I want to get you on my podcast. I even told the story of like, how I approached you that one time and said we should hang out sometime. We should
Oh
see
my
a
gosh,
movie.
like like that kind of awkward, almost first date conversation. Like, you're
Yes,
gonna like me back?
yeah. I even brought that up in one of my episodes about trying to make friends as an adult is like trying to date, and it's that same kind of fear.
Yeah,
But I remember having that thought. Like you actually taught a Sunday school class, and I would be like, you know what? Todd seems like a cool guy. He keeps referencing movies. I love movies in his lessons. And I said, next time I see him in the hall, I'm going to say we should hang out. And lo and behold, I walk out and I turn the corner. There you are. I was like, well, I guess I have to bring this up right now. I already decided I would.
there's no better time.
Yeah, that's right. And then the rest is history. We've been hanging out for a long time, watched a lot of movies together in the theater, in your home, in my home. But shortly after we started hanging out, though, Todd, you came to me and you said, "Hey, I just quit my job, but I'm starting this consulting business, career coaching, life
Right.
coaching." And you gave me one of your cards, and I remember thinking I was so impressed by the boldness of that move, and immediately I felt anxiety, like as if I was putting myself in your shoes, like the anxiety I would feel around making that big choice. I was super excited for you, but it's funny how that my reaction was, "Oh my gosh, that would scare me."
Right. Right. So it wasn't, you weren't impressed by how my cards looked. That wasn't right.
No, I thought they were gorgeous.
But so let me ask you, man, was that about your concern for me, or did it have something to do with you and your opportunities? Was there any of that kind of projection going on when you were like, oh, like I'm excited for you, but I'm a little nervous?
Yeah, and I definitely didn't say anything to you other than that's awesome. I'm not gonna try to put doubt in your mind, but I think that probably more came down to my own like insecurities around making those big choices. And I bet you might have even potentially could come across people who get defensive because maybe that could be how they kind of process it as a defensiveness, that things they know they should be doing that they're not doing. Me, it was more like, ooh, that'd be really scary and that'd be a lot of pressure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
So, I mean, I go through this. So, absolutely, I'm still doing coaching. So, this was like 2017, was spring of 2017. So, here we are. If I could math out the years, what is this, 4 years later or something like that? And here we are. Is that 17, 18, 19, 20? 5 years later, right?
yeah,
So I'm still doing it. And I go through this all the time with people that are looking to change their lives, and that kind of interaction has more to do like with what's going on with you emotionally and subconsciously than like the realities of the scariness of starting a business. We are all told like 9 out of 10 businesses fail and it takes 3 years to break even and all this kind of nonsense. And so some of that goes into play. But when you watch someone go through a process of change that's so dramatic and taking a risk that you don't understand, it reflects back to your own belief system about that. Like, oh man, could I do that? I don't think I could do that. How can this person go and do something that I don't think I could do? And there's
hmm
all kinds of crap going on in there. And I think that people, for the most part, if you were to express your concerns, like, dude, Todd, that's crazy. You're quitting your job. Your wife's on disability and all of that stuff. You're expressing it out of love, right? Like you want to protect me as your friend. You want to make sure that I'm okay, that I'm not going to make things harder for myself. But that has more to do with what's going on inside of us than any of that other stuff going on.
Well, we hope it's out of love, but that's not necessarily going to be the case either. I think sometimes people might think they're doing something because they care, but really, like you said, it's more about them. Or maybe someone has a hard time seeing other people succeed potentially because whatever that makes them feel. I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading that,
No, I
but
don't think so, because you know what? We all have multiple times in our lives where opportunity comes to us and we could have chosen a different path, but it's risky and we don't know how it's going to work out and we're scared to do it. So we take the comfortable path. And that
mm,
happens over and over and over again until one of two things happens. Either your life becomes so uncomfortable that you have to do something dramatically different, or there's something you want more than anything else that's going to get you outside that comfort zone. And when you see
mm-hmm.
other people make that difficult decision that you haven't made, or that you've refused to make, or you can't conceive of making, that has, I mean, you got to look in the mirror and say, how come I'm still here doing what I'm doing? Why couldn't I do that decision? And
Yeah.
most of us are not ready for that kind of real conversation.
And then what if you say, "Oh, I missed that opportunity 10 years ago," and like I guess it's too late. Sometimes because that's something I'm realizing is I'm at a certain age in my life where I'm like, I really need to start taking building wealth seriously. And I think, man, if I would have thought about this 10 years ago, I'd be in such a good place right now. What good does that do me to have
Well,
that thought?
that's where more people get stuck, right? Is in the past. Like they can't make a decision in the now because they're worried about how the future is going to turn out, and then they're regretting the past, and so they're replaying the past and saying, I should have done it then. It's too late now. I might as well just stay the course, right? And I tell people all the time, like when you want to have a shade tree in your lawn, like when do you want that? Do you want it 10 years from now? No, you want it now. So if you want it now, when's the best time to plant it? It is true that the best time to plant a tree is 10, 15 years ago. When's the second best time?
Right now.
Today. There's
Yes.
no better time than
Yes.
today.
Hmm.
Right?
And that's a huge thing that got me to start doing this podcast. Is I realized I started asking some people questions that knew a lot more about investing than me, and they started asking me questions back about my goals and what am I trying to accomplish and what kind of passive income I'm looking to experience get from this in these investments, potentially in the stock market, for instance. And
Right.
I was like, that's I don't have an answer for that, and I guess that's where I need to start. And it's so overwhelming these things.
Well, it's not if you approach it the right way. It's overwhelming because we have not been taught to set goals and dreams,
Yeah.
right? Like think about it. As soon as your kids are born, you know that come 5 years old, they're going to go into school and they're going to stay in that elementary school system from kindergarten through 12th grade. They've got 13 years of their life planned out. And then
Hmm.
there's things after that as well. There's college. Go to college. You can go to a junior college or go to 4 year college, but eventually you're going to choose a degree, and that degree should be something you love and you're going to do for the rest of your life. And then you get out of college and it's any one of established societal goals, like get a career and a good paying job and start moving forward with that and trying to get promotions, get married, maybe have kids, buy a house. And then like what other goals are there to get? Retirement, right? Like now
Hmm.
let's grind for 30 or 35 years. If you're 25 and you're going to grind for the next 30 years until retirement, there's this common misconception that life is going to begin then at retirement. You just,
Hmm.
and we're not taught to look at goals beyond those societal milestones.
Hmm.
Goal setting should be fun. It should be like, what do you want to do? This is your, so far as we know, your one shot at life here. What do you want it to look like?
Dude, it's so true though, because that is where it started for me. Is like, hey, I want to have that retirement. Maybe my life is, it's fine, but then when retirement comes, and I can start living my life. But then the more I've been digging into this, I'm realizing, why would I wait until then to start living my life and enjoy my life and having abundance. So that can happen now, and it can happen so much sooner than I ever expected.
Why wait? Because
Yeah.
everybody else is waiting.
Mm. It's just
Sucks
like
when you think about it that way.
it's just kind of the story we're told is like you just work until you get really old, and then hopefully you get to go golfing
Yeah. And
when you're retired.
why do you think we have midlife crises?
Mm.
Because we've been grinding and we've shut off ourselves from living for 5, 10, 15 years. And then like our soul just can't take it anymore. And that's why people go and buy fancy cars or have affairs or dye their hair or like
Mm.
whatever they do. Or, and that's, we're not meant to live in that, that post World War II era of security in a job, and waiting till retirement. You know, it's just the world is a different place, but our values, our societal programming, our mindset hasn't evolved and caught up.
So for you, when you decide to make this leap, like what led up to that? Like, how did you feel when you did that?
Okay, so this requires some backstory, right? Like, I felt like I've always been stuck in my life. Like, how come other people, are dating the girl that I was in love with in high school? How come other people are starting businesses? I have no idea how they can do that. How come other people seem to be happier? I mean, this is going back 20 years ago, long before social media and that sort of comparison with the filtered world of Instagram and things. Before that was even a thing, I felt like I was living beneath what I was capable of. So, like, I spent a lot of time researching psychology, and I thought I'd go be a therapist because I could help other people out, but couldn't figure out my own crap.
Mm.
So I've been searching, and that search, showed up in my spirituality, in my religion. It showed up in the jobs that I had, but there are two hugely pivotal moments that led to this. One was my best friend, Andy, who you know or knew, who in 2012 was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And in 2014, I think it was summer 2014, he quit his job and moved away with his family out of state to go to law school because he's like, I don't know how much longer, how many more years I have, 5, 10, 15 years maybe. I want to do something that I want to do and something that can provide a better income for his family.
Hmm.
And so I was a career coach working for state government at the time. And like, I use that story all the time to try and motivate people. Like, here's my best friend who's dying, going after his dreams. How come you and I are healthy and we're stuck in, crappy jobs, or you're unemployed, or you've been, like, I was earning $35,000 a year working for the state, comfortable, not making changes, looked at some graduate schools, but didn't really buy the whole higher education creates higher income story, which isn't really the case anymore. Um, and I was puzzled. How come he can go do that? What do I have to have? Something dramatic happen to me? And something did. As you know, in 2015, then my wife was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I mean, it was the size of a lemon. And within 24 hours, she had to have it removed.
Hmm.
And I always tell people, like, spoiler alert on the story, like, she's okay. It was a benign tumor. She did radiation like a year and a half ago, and that was rough, but hopefully that growth has stopped and it'll be okay. But like, that woke me up because her recovery from that surgery was so different than what the doctors told us. Like, I don't know if you remember, like, first time she went back to church, or, I mean, because we live in the same neighborhood, like, she was in a walker, she had her head wrapped, because she had this huge scar on her head. She was in speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy. She hasn't worked since then, and this is 6, 7 years ago now.
Yeah, but that was actually I had moved into the neighborhood after all this, and so I kind of
Was it
learned
really?
in post. Yeah, like
Wow.
so. Yeah.
So she's no longer working. She was earning more money than me to begin with. She was earning like $45,000 a year. I was earning 35. I've got my 3 little boys. I've got a mortgage here. Like, if I'm a career coach that can't get a job, then what good am I? What's wrong with me? What is keeping me stuck? And I hired a coach. I hired a coach who started to teach me about mindset, in fact, he told me, he says, the only reason why you're earning $35,000 a year is because you believe that's what you're worth.
Hmm.
I went to work on changing what I felt I was worth. And so, like I said, something needs to happen that either is going to create enough pain that makes living the current way you're living impossible, or you've got to have a goal and a vision and a dream that you're going to go after. And most people run into the pain barrier that
Mm.
forces, that's a catalyst for transformation. That's what it was for me.
Because there is pain around making that change, and it's scary. But if it's like outweighed by just like you said, it's so I can't keep doing this anymore. Like that's the thing that push you, right?
Yeah.
But it shouldn't. It's too bad it has to get to that so often because it
Well,
doesn't. I guess we need some catalyst, but
well, yeah, most people aren't going to choose. We're not
yeah.
taught to set goals. We're not taught to think big. We're not taught to believe that we can accomplish our dreams. I mean, I know kind of in like the millennial, in a pejorative kind of way, saying like, oh, you're unique and you can be someone and you can change the world. We said that a lot in the 80s and 90s and didn't really mean it.
Mm,
And I think as kids, we kind of understood there is that dichotomy of like, you're telling me I can be anything, but I really don't believe that I could be anything.
mm,
And so we have to let the reality that we live in kind of collapse around us, usually through a negative experience that we look at and say, that's either going to push me forward or hold me back. For me, I felt like this was my last chance, my only chance to push forward. Otherwise, like, I have no idea where I'd be now.
hmm. So then, at that moment, is when you decided. Was it the first thought was I'm going to start my own like career consulting business?
My first thought is I got to get a better job, man.
So you like start looking at job openings or something?
Yeah, I went on tons of interviews, and I thought, man, if I could earn 50 grand or 55 or something like that would be really great. Never really dreaming that I could earn more, but I was surrounded by other people that had 6-figure jobs, and I'm like, I don't even know, like, man, if I could earn 6 figures, that would be it. But I had a conversation with my mentor that told me that basically our thinking is habitual, that we're a product of the habits of thinking from our environment, from our family, all these things that we've kind of been touching base with. And I realized that, well, let's play a game here. Like, you're probably wearing shorts today, right?
I am.
Thank goodness for that. We've got pants on. I am as well. When you got dressed this morning, put your shorts on. Did you put your right leg in your shorts first or your left leg?
I'm pretty sure my left.
Pretty sure your left. Like if
Yeah,
if you think about it, do you always put your left leg in first?
I'm pretty sure I do.
Why? How come?
It's just what I've always done. It's just what I do.
It,
It's kind of.
are you left-legged? Is that
I'm actually right-handed, apparently left-legged.
okay? So like now you've got your little kids, right? When your
Hmm.
kids come to you to get dressed and you like hold out the pants for them, you get one leg ready first, right?
It's their right leg, but my left.
Okay, so you've got their right pant hole ready, right? And you hold it out.
Uh
And
huh.
do they always give you the right leg, or do they sometimes screw up and like give you the left leg because they don't know the difference, right?
Yeah, yeah. They'll
And then you're like,
sometimes.
what do you tell them? You're like, not that leg, give me the other leg,
Actually, yeah, that's what happens.
right? That's what happens.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
Uh
matter how many times you hold out the same leg, but they can't get it right until finally they conform to your habit. And then for the rest of their life, they're going to get dressed with their right leg in their pant first, and it's not even their habit. They didn't even choose it,
That's oh my, you blow my mind right now.
right?
Like it's such a simple little example, but you're basically saying they had their own intuition that got just kind of overridden. It's
Yeah.
like, no, this is the way it's going to be done because this is how I want to do it.
So if you've never thought for yourself getting dressed which pant leg you want to put in, like I had this realization in a similar way, I'm like, then what else could I not be in control of in my life? And if I took that control, what would happen? That's the moment that changed everything. When I was aware I was
Wow,
getting dressed because my parents dressed me a certain way.
that's amazing.
And so then
Wow.
I had to learn how to think for myself. And I wanted a better job. I'm like, well, what would it look like to earn 6 figures? I tried to find a job and I interviewed for dream jobs, like crazy things happened, but I didn't get it. I stumbled into an opportunity to consult a small business office and just started winging it, figuring it out. And I wasn't earning a ton of money from them.
This
And
is like while you still had your full time job. This was like a side thing.
I was doing it like I could work Monday through Thursday at the state, and I had Fridays off, and every other Friday morning I went in and I had no idea what the hell I would teach them. I was a career coach, so I teach motivation, and I was learning mindset from my coach, but I started teaching them more and more. And I took a small business class to think like somehow like I can't get an interview and can't get a job. I might as well try and start my business. So I took a small business class, and then it was like I was struck by a lightning bolt that I had to quit my job and start my own career coaching company. And I'm like, how in the hell am I going to do that? So it was a process of having some wins and growing my mindset that got me even considering the idea.
Mm, that does seem like a common theme. I mean, I think I was just talking with someone yesterday that for a future episode, and she started a dance. She used to teach dance in all these places, and then eventually one day she said, "Oh, I guess I could teach some people my garage." And then she like it kind of flipped a switch flipped. All of a sudden, she wasn't satisfied with just teaching for other people anymore. She
Yeah,
was nervous to like really go for it, like she had reservations,
yeah.
but it's something had changed. Like she's no longer just satisfied in being a cog in someone else's system. She now wanted to not do that, but then had to get that next step of actually making a real business, and she did, and is being very successful. But very interesting. There's this you need to kind of get that switch needs to flip.
Well, that's it. Like something's going to have to switch if you're ever going to put your right leg in your pants first, right? Some
Yeah.
and it was just for me it was a lightning bolt. I mean, I think it was a spiritual awareness download from source, God, revelation. I don't know what you want to call it, but like it was just a very interesting experience, and the details don't matter except that I had that realization.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like March of 2017, and the first $100 I spent to design this little logo for the business cards, design this little stone guy, like freaked me out. And then to like pay the $80 to register my LLC with the state freaked me out.
Mm-hmm.
But I also went in early April. Like I wrote my resignation letter, dated it June 15th, picked out, my last day was going to be like June 29th, June 30th. And I did a lot of mindset preparation to be able to walk away. But
Mm.
if you don't have a lightning bolt moment that's going to say that if you don't change now, you never will, like life just continues until you have that experience, or you die. Like I hate to say that, but it's true.
Wow. And did you? I mean, you decided the day you were gonna to just move on, and then is that when you did that happen then? The day that was your last day, the day you planned on when you wrote that letter.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was rough. The separation from my company was rough because I had, or what was with the state of Utah, and I don't mind saying I had some pretty crummy bosses that were emotionally abusive and would try to say like, "Well, what are you going to do with health insurance with your wife?" And tried to, you know,
Scare you a little bit.
yeah, maybe. Just because all of a sudden me leaving was an exercise of my power, and they didn't have power over me, so. But I did. I left. June 29th was my last day. I went on vacation to Michigan, and with my family, I came back and just figured it out.
Hmm. And then, I mean, a lot of times you hear it sounds like you did have some side work that gave you that realization. I could do this. I could figure this out. But it was really a huge leap of faith for you. You didn't have like sometimes you hear the story of you build up a certain amount of business and then you
Yeah, I didn't have any
transition.
of that.
You had a different situation, right?
I had one private client that I charged $500 for, and I did 16 weeks of work with them. I was doing monthly consulting with this business. I was getting 1% of their gross, and I swear they were like 40 to 50,000 a month, maybe 61,000. So I mean, it's not a ton of money. It's not enough to survive on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hit or miss for a while. Got a couple more clients, up my prices. Um, I just I just had to figure it out.
And one thing you mentioned earlier was like it was really scary to, for instance, invest a little bit to get a logo or make your company. But have you found as you've gone on, as you've taken those risks and invested in your company and in yourself, that just pays off like tenfold, if not more?
If not more. I mean,
Yeah.
my best. I haven't really looked at my digits. I think my best week that I've had in my business was $42,000 in a week.
Wow. It's amazing.
But I also like literally in April I spent $30,000 for a year long business mentor, and then another $18,000 for some more interaction in a course with my mentor Bob Proctor. So like I've already paid out more this year in professional development than I ever earned in my entire life before going into business for myself.
That's amazing. But it's you just kind of have enough evidence and experience that you can have that faith saying, I know this will be worth it. You're obviously not just throwing money at things that don't make
Right.
sense, but you are making educated choices and you know from past experience, this is going to give me the things I need and it's going to pay for itself.
I mean, sometimes I do. I probably lost. I don't think I broke even on marketing expenses that I made last year, where
Okay.
I spent probably $30,000 or 35,000, and I don't think I broke even on those. So it's hit or miss. But here's the big difference: to come from earning $35,000 a year and having my coach say that's how much you believe you're worth, to now saying I'm worth putting a $50,000 investment in myself. That alone tells the growth
Yeah.
in 5 years time.
Yeah, I guess that's not really needs to be the test of like every single thing you do ends up being like a winner, but it's about like consistently putting that effort in. It's going to pay off, right?
Well,
Yeah.
I know that I'm worth it, and I need to
Hmm.
demonstrate that with what I do with my money.
Yeah.
Because if I come at it from a scarcity mindset, it's gonna like that scarcity mindset is gonna close down my business.
It's so funny because as you know, I have my real estate photography business. I've had that come up. It's kind of a thing that I look to as a way to like learn principles, and I'm trying to grow that business and make it more passive and make it become more than it is. But I remember you helped me a lot. Like you connected me with people that you knew were photographers that gave me good advice to become
Yeah,
better at what I do. Kerry Judd, remember him?
yeah.
I'm actually interviewing him tomorrow.
Oh, dude,
Uh,
awesome.
he's awesome. He's so generous with his time and looking at my photography, give me very direct feedback about how I could improve. I remember you telling me like, dude, you need to buy a drone. And I was just like so scared. I'm like, there's no one's asking for drone photography. I don't want to spend the money on that. Like I don't, not, no one's tearing down my door for it. But guess what? As soon as I bought it, I go to my clients and say, "Hey, I have this drone." And they're like, "Do drone on every shoot." So immediately, I'm making more money with every shoot.
Totally.
So it's scary to like put those investments in, but everything I've done with my photography business specifically is paid off and has made my work better, which has brought me more work. And you start to learn, oh, dude, taking these risks is just makes sense. Like I can't afford not to take risks and to invest in myself and in my business and things like that.
Well, everything, every one of those decisions, every step, whether it's a right decision or wrong decision, every experience you have an opportunity to grow your awareness
Mm-hmm.
about yourself, about what you're capable of, and you know, moving through the fear, which is really just you're challenging your programming, you're challenging your belief system, you're challenging what you've done in the past, and every single time you challenge that program and grow, you grow in awareness.
Yes. And I think that that's something that I think is good that you kind of are saying is you're not always going to win. You're going to make mistakes. And that's kind of, if you look at the logo of my podcast as a deer in the headlights,
Yep,
and I mentioned this before, but I'll mention again in my podcast at least. The idea of a deer in the headlights, what does a deer do when it's in the brights? It just freezes, right?
totally.
It doesn't do anything. And then inevitable doom, boom. If that deer were to just start to move and run in any direction, it doesn't have to be the perfect and right direction. Just get
Right.
away from the car that's coming at you. Get You're going to be better off. Maybe that deer runs and falls off a cliff. Not likely, or maybe it runs into a different truck coming from the other direction. Also, not very likely. But that deer is learning something through that process. So every failure, if you do something instead of nothing, even if you fail, you're gaining skills and knowledge, and you're learning what not to do and what to do, and you're gaining confidence if you don't let it just destroy you. You know what I mean? So I think learning, growing is all about trial and error, and like embrace failure and learn from it. I remember I got laid off one time as a software engineer, and I had to go find a job.
Yeah.
Some funding at this company just dropped out, and then out of nowhere, I thought a bunch of money was coming to this company. And all of a sudden, I'm laid off. And interviewing over in many different places, I was still pretty new into the career, so a lot of places needed a little more experience than what I had at the time, and it was really hard. But I started to realize, dang, every time I interview with them, I need to find out like what I was missing. So I'd, be very directed and learn from them, and realizing this is an opportunity to learn. So it's hard to do, but man, if you really take on those things, a failed interview as a way to learn how to do better next time, you're gonna, man, how far can you go? You know?
100%. That is the only path to success is trial
Mm-hmm.
and error. Is making a decision in the moment, in the present, with the knowledge you have, trusting intuition, trusting your gut, and stepping forward and getting hit by a car and getting back up and trying again. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and either one or two things are going to happen. You're going to get across the street to where you want to be, or a car is going to kill you. You're going to die either way. And I hate to be morbid about it, but it's true. There's a lot of coaches and a lot of mentors out there preaching strategy. I've got the strategy to do this. Here's this business in the box. Follow my system, and you're gonna. And you know what? Every single person, I truly believe this. Every single person has talent, ability, experience, and desire, and there has to be a corresponding puzzle piece out there that you can slide all of that material, all of that who you are into, to create really authentic success, a quantum leap
Mm,
above and beyond whatever you've done. And if you try to copy everyone else's strategy, you're not living with any heart.
mm.
You
That's awesome.
risk it. You got to take a risk.
Because it's I could look at you and say, man, obviously Todd's got to figure it out. I need to go start a career coaching business. That's not really
Totally.
not necessarily going to be me, right? That's not my passion. It's not the thing that I have the skills for
Right.
necessarily. It's like, yeah, I love what you're saying, and that's what I for so long I wanted to do a podcast, and I said, and I was so worried about it being the same as what other people are doing, and I said, I'm just going to do it the way I know how and learn from there and get started. So for sure, and I'm hoping that the authenticity of what I'm trying to do like resonates with people. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't want people to listen because I do. But I found that even if only whatever listens, I'm gaining so much from this experience. So,
And so that's it. You've got a whispering in your heart that says, this is a good idea to do. And you do it not knowing where it's going to take you.
mm-hmm,
And you allow life to unfold with every experience and every step. And as you grow in that awareness and follow those desires, life will lead you to other choices and opportunities that you wouldn't have had otherwise. But most people, they're the deer in the headlights and they're stuck.
mm-hmm.
So you've either got a goal you're going after, or you're going to wait until life becomes painful enough that it pushes you to change.
And I found that as you start to look for opportunities, as I've been looking for ways to like, how do I build wealth? What are other ways to have passive income? I start to recognize things around me I wouldn't have recognized before. And it almost starts to feel like opportunities are starting to look for me, if that makes sense. It's because I'm looking for them and I'm noticing them. They were always there. They didn't just all of a sudden magically start happening because my brain made them happen. I'm just becoming in sync with opportunity, I guess.
And maybe that's a part two conversation
Yeah,
about how that awareness is attracting those opportunities, and really what money is, what money and wealth is, and how do you get in harmony with that.
I love it. Let's put that in the books. I'd love to get into that next time for
Sweet.
sure. Dude, this has been such an awesome conversation as I knew it would be. And I know you have so much more that you could share. And like I said, yeah, let's have a conversation soon about attracting opportunities to what you're saying, kind of, right? Like that energy you put out into the universe and what returns to you in a way. Is that what you're saying?
That's 100% what I'm saying.
Okay. I would love, let's get into it next time. I know people are going to love what they have heard from what you have to say. If they want to learn more about you or what you're doing, what are some ways they can find you?
So my website is BauerleConsulting.com. Now my name is Bauerle. So BauerleConsulting.com. To be honest, there's not a ton up there. If they really want to get in touch with who I am and what I teach, like follow me on TikTok, and my
Mm,
handle is at ToddBauerle. That's Todd L. Bauerle, and that's my handle like everywhere. My Instagram. I'm pretty sure it's my Twitter, but I'm doing TikTok content like crazy. 1 minute little bits of mindset. So would love
mm.
to have you follow and connect with me. Send me messages there. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
I've been following you on that, and it's really cool. You'll respond to people's questions and with your response, and it's really good. So that's kind of where you're most active. It sounds like is on TikTok.
100%.
I'll put that handle and a link to his website. If anybody has any questions for Todd that I could forward to him, or maybe we could address at a future time,
Yeah,
you can
totally.
email me at nobettertime.podcast@gmail.com. I would love for you to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. If there's an option for rating and reviewing, please subscribe. I'm going to post a video version of this podcast on YouTube. So if you're listening to this right now, if you just quickly get on your phone or computer and go to YouTube and search No Better Time Podcast, And subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have a goal to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm about 1% there. So need your help to get to that 1,000. And thank you so much for listening. I definitely want to engage with you. One other option that's really cool is if you go to Anchor, that's ANCHOR, anchor.fm/no better time. There's an option to leave a voice memo uh, for me if you don't want to email or do other things, and I'll play that on my next podcast, and I'll answer your questions. Thanks again for listening. And Todd, thank you so much for your time.
Happy to be here, man.
Awesome.